The conversation on the economy, on the global economy, is still very much dominated by the coronavirus and its fallout on economic growth in China and elsewhere. It's still early days, but clearly we have already surpassed the SARS virus, the SARS event. Clearly, we are already seeing that the world has moved into panic mode. Many companies are canceling trips to China, are relocating or trying to relocate their supply chains to other geographies, to other territories. And we're already seeing the first estimates of what this is going to cost in terms of growth. I think Deutsche Bank has produced some numbers. He's talking about 1.5% on annual terms for first quarter for China, 0.4 or 0.5 for the global economy for the first quarter, and again in annual terms. It's too much early days to have accurate estimations, and perhaps they exaggerate a little bit because there will be a rebound, especially on manufacturing and on the financial markets and on prices of oil and other commodities, but and I'm not sure if it has been factored in. So we still have to wait and see, but it's troubled times for the global economy until we see exactly how this develops. We're already seeing some concerns on the political situation in China. This is creating some political tensions. Political tensions have always been a concern for analysts, not direct economic costs, but how China was going to move into as it keeps on growing, its middle class keeps growing, people become more affluent, when political demands would start. I mean, and anything could make them flare up. This could be a trigger of political distress in China. So it's troubled times, and let's keep in mind again that China's contribution to global growth is above 30%, and of course the impact and the fallout on every other country will still be large. It has been a surprise. It really, the first two caucuses, the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire caucus, everybody was planning or thinking that Bernie Sanders, the extreme left candidate, would be winning. He has been up there, but it was a big surprise how centrist Pete Buttigieg has taken the lead in Iowa and come a close second in New Hampshire. So that is a surprise. It was also a surprise that another centrist and relatively unknown candidate, Amy Klobuchar, has had a very good result in New Hampshire. And on the other side, it's been surprising too how the old safe candidate Joe Biden is doing poorly. Apparently, the impeachment process and his name has been tainted during this last few months of negative publicity, and maybe it has affected him. It's still early days again in this one. We don't know what Mike Bloomberg is going to do, and he's still there as an outsider, but he might gain some traction as we move on to the primaries and then as we go towards Super Tuesday. We'll see, but it is turning out to be an interesting election, and but the way it looks today, President Trump is still the favorite candidate for most polls, and I think President Trump is a very disruptive force in the global economy. He creates a lot of uncertainty, and that is hardly ever good for growth. Just this afternoon, the UK growth number for the last quarter of 2019 came out, and growth stagnated there. The growth rate was zero. Is this because of Brexit or because of something else? Probably Brexit played a part of it. We don't, it was the last quarter, so it's interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how the British economy reacts to Brexit once it's already there, even though we still don't have a deal, and how it responds to the coronavirus shock. But it was a little bit of a negative surprise that the growth rate happened to be nil for the UK for the fourth quarter. Again, the forecast for the European area is still pretty dim. Germany is not doing very well, and it's going to be affected negatively by the coronavirus crisis. Germany is the second largest exporter in the world and the first supplier of goods and services to China. So anything that happens in China will affect Europe through the Germany channel that is going to be downgraded in the coming months. Well, in Spain, what we know since last Monday was that we have the new budget proposal, the new budget plan, and the new macroeconomic scenario. The main numbers there are that the government has negotiated with the European Commission that the budget deficit for 2020 should be 1.8% of GDP. The previous agreement was 1.1%. So this is a much more generous scenario where fiscal consolidation is not going to be so strict in Spain. And the government is expecting the Spanish economy to grow at 1.6% in 2020, which is again 0.4% less than 2019. This means two things. First of all, the Spanish economy is going to continue decelerating, so growth rates will keep coming low. Perhaps this number is a little bit optimistic. I don't think it takes into account the coronavirus shock. And the budget is going to be expansionary, because the expenditure ceiling has been raised by 3.8%, which clearly is more than the 3.8% in nominal terms. Take away 1 point because of inflation, so that's going to be like 2.8%, and the growth rate of the GDP is going to be about 2%. So it will be moderately expansionary. But it's still, some fiscal consolidation needs to be done. So if the government is going to satisfy this budget, which is the big challenge, it has to come through a sizable increase in tax revenues, about 10 to 15,000 million euros, which is a relatively large number, and puts a large question mark on exactly how the different revenue and expenditure items are going to be negotiated and are going to be finalized once we do have the budget proposal coming through and the negotiation and the discussion in Parliament. So it's going to be interesting, but there is some progress has been done, and maybe we are on track for a June approval if the politics help and allow for some agreement and for parliamentary support for this budget. So interesting, hard, and some progress along this line, which is always welcome.